Hey there guys, it's Tina and I'm back, and I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe. If you're also back, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me again. I'm happy to see your face. Give the family a hug for me. Tell them I said hi. And if you're new and maybe you like what you see, please consider subscribing because we have tons of fun here on this channel talking about makeup and all things beauty. And in today's video, we are talking all about the new Symphony collection from Kaleidos Makeup. This collection includes the Symphony Contour Trios as well as the Symphony Face Illuminators. There are 5 shades of each of these and they were all sent my way by Kaleidos Makeup. So shout out to Kaleidos for sending these over for me to test out for you guys. So I am going to share swatches. I'm going to talk you through the product. I'm going to show you the packaging up close and personal, and there will also be a demo. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So as I mentioned, this is the Symphony collection from Kaleidos Makeup, and it includes contour trios as well as face illuminators. So the Kaleidos Symphony Trios features 1 face illuminator that they label as Fill and 2 contour shades that are labeled as Sculpt and Chisel in a supremely smooth formula that lifts, enhances, and defines features, restore natural looking shadows, and maintain a skin-like finish with these contour trios. There are 5 different combinations of these trios available, and each of them retail for $25, and they contain 13 grams of product or 0.45 ounces and have an intended usage life of 12 months. They're made in the PRC and exported, so they are cruelty free, and they're also a vegan product. They're also the Symphony Face Illuminators in this collection, and there are also 5 options available, and these retail for $16 a piece, and they contain 6.3 grams of product or 0.22 ounce. They also have an intended usage life of 12 months, made in the PRC as well, and they're also cruelty free and vegan. Now the face illuminators are single compacts featuring the fill shade from each of the contour trios. So the fill shade, which is the highlight shade, each of these are available individually as a face illuminator shade. So if you buy a contour trio, there's no need for you to buy the face illuminator in the same tone because it will be the same shade in the face illuminator. And there are key features to both of these products that I want to mention really quickly before we jump into the overview of the products. So it says here, finely milled silky smooth powder blends to a natural finish. Semi-translucent powder blends and blurs to deliver a skin-like finish without caking and creasing. It's a satin soft formula that creates natural dimensions from every angle. It also has an easy application that adapts to diverse techniques. It's blendable and buttery smooth. It's buildable and user-friendly for customizable results. It is available in 5 shades for a range of skin tones, and it captures the true hues of different skin colors and undertones. The 5 shade range was developed to meet various makeup needs and desires. Alright, now let me go ahead and show you these products up close and personal and read you the packaging concept because there is an actual reasoning behind the packaging design. So it says here, the double-sided aesthetic of K. Sharpness and softness intertwined. Sleek metal paired with rounded curves in a streamlined construction. The K-shaped packaging echoes the imprints featured throughout the palette. Practicality and quality paralleled. An instinctual handheld design with a magnetic closure. So both of these products come in these K-shaped metal cases that have a pretty weighted feel to them. I love how luxurious they feel without being bulky. They're very slim and streamlined, and as the description mentions, it is in the shape of a K that is not only aesthetically pleasing, but it fits perfectly in the hand. So it's easy to hold, especially if you have dexterity issues. It is held securely by a magnetic clasp, and there is a little cutout tab that you can just stick your finger between to lift the lid open. In the lid, there is a full-size mirror with a protective film over it, which you can go ahead and remove, and it will reveal a beautiful crisp mirror that you can use for makeup application. And the face illuminators are in a similar packaging to the contour trios It's just a mini version since it is a single shade. Again, the lid is magnetized. There is also a mirror. And on both of these products, we have a label on the back that indicates the shade name, the manufacturing information, and sizing details. We also have the Kaleidos logo printed on the back in purple. In the trios, there are 3 different shades. So we have the fill shades that, again, are also available as singles in the Face Illuminators. And this is meant to recreate the fullness of true skin with an intrinsic glow. In the center, we have the Sculpt shade. This easily sculpts and accentuates features. These center shades will have more of a gray or neutral undertone to create shadows on the skin. Then we have the Chisel shade, which enhances and refines facial structure naturally. These will be a little bit warmer in undertone to give a bronzy glow to the skin. So the Face Illuminators, again, are the single shades from the contour trios. These are the fill shades, and these are meant to blur, mattify, and deliver a from within radiance. There are also some details about the formulation. So they're using what they're describing as a cutting edge translucent system. So it says here, selected high quality mica gives skin a smooth airbrushed finish while delivering an intrinsic glow. Captures the true hues of different skin tones to formulate fine-tuned shades. It restores natural looking shadows and maintains a skin-like finish even after multiple applications. The fill shade blurs, mattifies, and delivers a from within radiance. A weightless soft glide offers seamless coverage, and it can be applied on large areas of the face without caking, clogging, or flashback. The Sculpt shade is a low saturated shadow shade specially developed for contouring, and the formula blends effortlessly without looking patchy. The Chisel shade amplifies skin color and flatters the face shape with an ambient skin perfecting filter. Tried and true ingredient ratio to ensure wear all day results. All right, now that we've gotten all those details out of the way, how about we go ahead and give you guys some swatches. And again, I have all 5 of the shades, so I'm going to show you each of them swatched out on my skin tone. And I'm going to swatch each of the contour trios along with the corresponding Face Illuminator, even though that's duplicitous because the Face Illuminator shade is the same as the fill shade in each of the trios. But we're gonna go ahead and do it anyways. And we'll start out with the light trio, which is described as light with neutral rosy undertones. And since these are all contour trios, they're going to lean more on the neutral side because they're meant to create a shadow effect on the skin, which implies that the shading should be a little bit more on the neutral side or gray based. So these shades definitely have a strong gray undertone to them, and I would recommend this for light skin. Pale skin can probably still get away with this contour trio, but the highlight or fill shade may be a little bit too deep to give you that real highlighted effect. But you can also use it as a setting or blurring powder. On my skin tone, these still show up, and I can actually use the fill shade or the illuminator shade as a brightening shade on my skin because it has such a thin finish. It is a lightweight powder, so it can add a light brightening effect to my skin. The Chisel and Sculpt shades obviously aren't meant to work on my complexion, and they definitely read as gray, and they would be too ashy for me to work with. Then we have the medium trio, which is described as medium with neutral golden undertones. So these are going to have a warmer or more caramel undertone to them, and this trio and illuminator is best for medium skin tones with more of a golden undertone. But when I swatch these out, they don't really look significantly different from the light trio. In fact, the illuminator shade or the fill shade looks a little bit lighter to me in the medium trio than the light trio. So if you have a light complexion with more of a warm undertone, this may be the one to go for. Even though it says medium, I feel like light skin can still benefit from this one. Again, I can use the fill shade as a lift and brightening shade, and even these contour shades can kind of work for me, but these will still read a little bit ashy because they have a lighter base to them. Then we have the tan trio, which is described as tan with gold and olive undertones. This is the one that I automatically gravitated towards because it has those warmer undertones, and I consider myself to have dark tan skin. Now the fill shade for this one looks more like a banana powder. It has that yellow golden undertone to it, which can definitely work to lift and brighten on my complexion. And the center shade, which is the Sculpt shade, still has that strong neutral undertone, which is not necessarily the most flattering on my complexion because I pull so strongly golden. So I would have to mix it in with the Chisel shade, which has a warmer undertone. If I mix the two shades together, that will give me a much better effect than just using the Sculpt shade on its own. And I can use the Chisel shade on its own to give me a more bronzed effect to my hairline and my temple area. Then we have the dark trio, which is described as dark with golden terracotta undertones. And these shades definitely have that warmer terracotta undertone. So the fill shade or the Illuminator shade is more on the peachy orange side, and I would never use this as a brightening lifting shade on my complexion, but on darker skin I can see this working beautifully. It's like a richer, peachier version of a banana powder, and I think this would flatter warm dark skin tones. The Sculpt shade is a little bit more on the neutral side again, so it will give you that sculpted effect, while the Chisel shade is a little bit more on the warm terracotta side, which is a little bit too orange for me. But if I mix the two shades, I can still use this trio very lightly though. Again, you can build and blend these colors, so I can still get away with using this dark trio even though the shades are a little bit too rich for my complexion. But I'm happy to see that these shades are darker, so they will work on darker, richer skin tones. And then finally we have the deep trio and Illuminator. This one is described as deep with red undertones. So this one definitely reads more on the red tone side rather than terracotta. The fill shade in this one is more on the golden side, so it's not as peachy, it's not as orange. So I think this also will work really beautifully on darker, richer skin. But the Sculpt and Chisel shades are more on the rosy side, a little bit more red. So these would work better on someone with a cooler undertone. For me, these are just way off because of that red undertone, and they're very intense. I could kind of get away with them if I use the light hand, but this trio is definitely not for me. This is meant for deeper, richer skin tones, and I'm happy to see that this actually goes a little bit richer and deeper. And you can build up the intensity of these shades as well. You can go in light-handed, but you can also build them up. And I will go ahead and show you all the Illuminators swatched out so you can see the differences. Again, I swatched from light to deep, and you can see the light and medium shades are very, very similar. The medium shade even looks a little bit lighter than the light shade, but the light shade has more neutral gray leaning undertones, while the medium is a little bit more on the beige side. I can actually get away with using the medium shade and the light shade again to help lift and brighten any areas that I want to add a little bit of that illuminated effect. All right, now that you've seen all the swatches, how about we go ahead and jump into a demonstration? I'm going to show you how I would use these trios and Illuminators on myself if I was going to pick and choose shades that work best for me. And since I have all 5 options available, I'm going to mix and match as I see fit. So let's go ahead and jump into the demonstration. I wanted to do a full demonstration using the palettes that I've chosen for myself that I think suit me best, which would be tan and dark. So this is the dark palette, which as you can see is very rich and deep. And then this is tan, which has more gray tone shades. And then I also chose the medium Illuminator, which is lighter than the 2 illuminating shades in these trios. So let's go ahead and start out with the Illuminator. And I'm just gonna grab a Rephr 337 brush and apply that under my eyes. And this is meant to lift and illuminate. So you'll see this side. Let's do one side first so you can see the difference. This is brighter, lifted, a little bit more highlighted, as you can tell. And then let's do it on the other side as well. The beauty of these powders is that they're very thin and very lightweight. So even though it looks very stark in the pan, it applies thinly to the face and it's not too intense. I'll pop a little bit the center of my forehead just for a little illumination. Again, it's a very thin powder, so the effect won't be too stark. And I'll run a little bit of that down the bridge of my nose and on my chin and on the tip of my nose. And it's matte, so even though it's adding this brightening, lifting effect, it's not shimmery, so I don't have a glow all over because I have oily skin. All right, let's do the contour. And I'm just gonna go ahead and grab a BK Beauty 111 brush. It's a pinched, fluffier brush. And I'm gonna pick up the Tan Trio and actually go between the two shades for sculpting and chiseling, because I feel like the shade that's meant for sculpting is just a little bit too gray for my complexion. And I am just going to tap that at the hollow of my cheek. So you see, I still get a little bit of that gray, but I added the warmth of the chisel shade to make it a little bit more natural on my complexion. Yeah, that looks a lot better than using it on its own. Again, mixing it on the other side. Now from the Tan Trio, I don't feel like the chisel shade is enough for a bronze look for me. So that's why I'm grabbing the dark trio. And I am actually going to mix the highlighter shade with a little bit of the center shade just to lighten it up just a bit. And I'll use that on my hairline. So I feel like these shades are just a little bit too deep and rich for me, as you can already see. So I don't want to go in too intensely with them. That's why I'm mixing the shades. And I'll use this fluffy brush to get a little bit more of a blend. And you can definitely blend them out easily, again, because they aren't heavily pigmented. They're a lighter powder formula. Let me grab a little bit of the light shade and the chisel shade. I'll tap it off just a bit because we saw how much can pick up. And I'll just run that against my temple just to create that dimension and like that bronzed effect. And I'll get some also on my jawline, and that's going to complete that look of a bronzed effect. Yep, that looks so much better now. All right, so here we have a full face of how I would utilize these trios and the Illuminator shade. I would go one shade up for the Illuminator to give a more lifted effect, because again, the formula is so airy that it's just gonna give a wash of color under the eyes that can definitely set your concealer and also give you a little bit of a brightening effect. And then the contour shade, it's not as harsh when I mix the two colors together. And then mixing the Chisel and Sculpt shade from the Tan Trio gives me a much more natural contour that I'm comfortable with. And then using all the shades in the dark trio gives me a beautiful warm bronzed look. And I think overall, this is a much better effect for my complexion and for what I go for. And that is how I would incorporate these products in my routine. As you can tell, there's no perfect trio for me. I feel like I would need to mix shades to get a perfect look for my complexion and my preferences. So I wanted to definitely share that with you guys so you could see how it would look if I use the shades that I thought complement my complexion the best. So let's go ahead now and finish up with the rest of the video. All right, now that I've given you all the product details, we've seen the packaging up close and personal, I've given you swatches of all 5 options that are available, and also included a demo of me using the shades that I think work best for my complexion. Let's go ahead and jump into my final thoughts and review. Let's start out with the price point. Again, the Contour Trios retail for $25 a piece. There are 3 shades included, so I think that is a pretty fair price point for this kind of product. The Face Illuminators, which are the singles for the fill shades in the Contour Trios, retail for $16. And again, I think that is a pretty fair price point. You do get more product in the single shade than you do in the Contour Trios, so I think that price point is also pretty decent for the type of product. As far as the packaging goes, I love this packaging. I think this is so well done. So they come in these metal cases with that K shape, which surprisingly actually do fit pretty comfortably in the hands. So I like that added touch. They are very sleek, very thin, very compact, and they also feel weighted. So I really love the design of the packaging, the magnetic closure, the mirror in the lid. Everything about the design just speaks to me. So I really love the packaging. You do have the label on the back with the shade name, and then you have the miniature version for the face illuminators. So the packaging I think is A+. They also have this purpley tint to the metal, which I think is a great added touch. All around, love the packaging of these. As far as purchasing goes, these are only available for purchase on the Kaleidos makeup website, and they do ship internationally from China. Now, I know that is not ideal for everyone. Some people are all about the instant gratification and they want their products right away. So keep that in mind in case you're interested in purchasing these products. It can take a couple of weeks to get to your door, but if you're interested in any of these products or any of the products on the Kaleidos makeup website, I think they're worth the wait. But what I would recommend doing is kind of bulking your purchases. So if there's anything else that you're interested in, lump everything together so you can get all your items all at once instead of doing separate, smaller orders. But that's not what you're here for. You want to hear about the product and the performance. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was a little bit skeptical initially when I saw the sneak peek because the shades that they swatched out just didn't look like they would work for me. Some of the shades just looked way too orange and peachy, and I'm like, how the hell is that gonna work for me? And then I got them in my hands and I was able to play with them and realize that the shades actually will work for me, and they're indeed contour products. So the Sculpt shades are gonna be a little bit more on the neutral side, which I know a lot of people do look for in their contour products. But the great thing about the trios is that they also include that chisel shade that is a little bit more on the warm tone side. So for people like me who prefer to use a bronzer for sculpting, you won't be excluded from this because you can mix the Sculpt and chisel shade to warm up that contour, which works really well, surprisingly. So the shade selection, even though you might be a little bit skeptical at first, I think it will cover a good range of skin tones, and the deep shade actually goes a lot deeper than I expected it to go, so I think that will work on some richer skin tones. Now obviously the shades aren't the deepest or the richest, so they are not going to cover the extremities of the skin tone range, because even the light trio I don't think is going to work on really pale skin unless you use a light hand. And that's the thing about the formulation, they're buildable. So I feel like even lighter skin tones can use a light hand and get away with using the light or medium trio. And then the deeper trio, you can build it up for a little bit more intensity on deeper skin. So I think overall the selection, just based on 5 options being available, was pretty well done. But those are just my thoughts. Maybe you will look at it differently, but I think they did a pretty decent job selecting the shades. As far as the formulation goes, okay, these are matte powders, but they have a little bit of a skin-like finish to them. So they're not a dry matte at all. They don't leave a flat finish to your skin. They blend in with your skin really well. And like I said before, it's a very ear-like formula. It's very thin. That translucent system that they mention in the description is actually pretty spot on, because these powders are very airy, very lightweight. Again, you can build them up, but that initial application is very thin. It's like a veil on your skin. It does blur, it does mattify, but it doesn't look dry on the skin. And I love that about these powders, because they're powders at the end of the day. So if you have dry skin, you're probably like, oh my God, I have to stay away from these. But these kind of melt into the skin and they don't accentuate dryness, which I appreciate. Now, if you have really, really dry skin, then finish off with a finishing spray to take away any of the residual powder effect. But I think you would still fall in love with the formulation because it is so lightweight and skin-like. These are beautiful, and even though I'm not really into contouring, I will continue to use these products because I can still do a bronzing by mixing the Sculpt and Chisel shades to get a warmer contour. And the fill shades or the face illuminators, the singles, I'm definitely going to be using those more to set under my eyes because it gives a lifting effect without having a really light concealer or a really light powder under my eyes. It blurs and sets my concealer, but it doesn't look dry and cakey. It's very lightweight and airy, and it does brighten my skin and brighten that under eye without leaving like a heavy pigmented powder behind. You know what I mean? You can apply a lighter powder under your eyes, but you can tell it's a lighter powder. With these Illuminator shades, I feel like, yeah, it's brightened and lifted, but it doesn't look like a light powder. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely going to have a lot of fun with the illuminating powders. And if you're interested in picking these up, I say go for the trio that you think would suit your skin tone the best. For me, it's the tan trio. I can also get away with the dark trio. And since I have both, I'll use both. But if I had to choose one, I would choose the tan trio, mix the Chisel and Sculpt shade to do that bronzer in, and also pick up the medium face illuminator. So I have a lighter shade for brightening up my under eyes, because I feel like the fill shade in the tan trio, I can actually use all over the face as a finishing powder and use the medium illuminator as a brightening powder. But that's just what I would do. I feel like you can mix and match these different trios and these illuminator shades, and they're at a price point that I would feel comfortable recommending you getting multiple shades. So there you have it. Those are my final thoughts. Let me know what you think. I hope this video was helpful, seeing the swatches, seeing them swatched out on my skin tone, and also seeing the demonstration to see how I would use them in practice. Let me know what you think. I will leave the link down below on where you can pick these up on the Kaleidos website, and I will also leave links to my Instagram and Twitter where you should be following me along. And let me know, are you interested in these products? Do you want to pick them up? What do you think? Are you still contouring? I personally am not like a big contour fan, but I'm going to get use out of these products for sure. So until my next video, which will be very soon, I'll talk to you. Bye guys.